This is the Practical Tactical Podcast. Hey folks, welcome to another edition of the Practical Tactical Podcast. This is the podcast dedicated to the practical application of tactical principles and teachings for the everyday common person. I'm your host, Casey. We've got Justin with us. Justin, how are you, my friend?
I'm doing good. Getting over a little crud. Hopefully I won't cough and snort too much during the show.
Well, I hope not. I don't think our viewers or our listeners would appreciate that.
Well, at least they're safe from the phlegm, but I'm doing good. Other than being a little under the weather, I'm good. Didn't work too much overtime this week. Did get in a class, a little combatives class. Got to beat some pads a little bit, and once again realized my conditioning is not where it should be. But it was a good class, and learned some good information. And I'd recommend that anybody, you guys out there that strap a gun to your hip, that's just one part of the puzzle. That's one little piece of it. At least, rolling a mat with somebody, get involved with something like that to just don't let the first time be in the Walmart parking lot fighting for your life. Some combatives, hand-in-hand, grappling, just a little bit is worth its weight in gold.
Well, what got you into that? What did you say it was, Krav Maga?
It's not really that's what we used to teach at my agency. They used to have some law enforcement restructured Krav Maga, but it's a specific instructor from one of our agencies in the area that's come in and done it, and he has done various martial arts throughout his life, basically a lifelong guy in everything from Taekwondo to different stuff, and he has basically tailored a course for our agency and cut out a lot of the other stuff. For instance, the only closed hand strikes that we use are what you would call a hammer fist. Most of our straightforward strikes are going to be with palms or, like I said, the side of a fist. We don't teach any, actual boxing type blows due to the fact that, one, they're very high on the use of force continuum, and two, they're also very high risk to break hands. We've had a lot of issues with, I know people in our agency, not the actual employees, but detainees, that get in fist fights and they break their hands. They get teeth embedded in their hands. Real bad infections from people punching people in the mouth with a closed fist. So mainly
because the human mouth is nasty.
Yes, mainly because the use of force issues. We have to have a pretty significant thing going on to actually just haul off and start pummeling someone in the head. So most of our stuff is distractionary blows, blows to the common peroneal, or, I've lost the word already, one along the neck, the side of the neck there. Brachial stun. That's what it is, brachial stun.
Well, I hope you don't have to testify to that.
But anyways, it's good stuff, and it's very, very scalable to what we do, and it's designed for us to have maximum effect without putting ourselves at risk. Because I'm telling you, because I don't care who you are, unless you're hitting a heavy bag on a regular basis, you're a trained boxer, and even those guys that do it are going to tell you, you don't want to get in a bare knuckles match with anybody and start punching them in the face. You're going to tear your hand up probably as much as you're going to tear their face up. And it's just not, especially for our line of work. You win the fight and break both your hands, you're out of work for a couple weeks. So that's not ideal. We'd rather use a few palm strikes, close the distance, grapple, hold them.
So this was all work related?
Yeah, it's actually a mandatory thing at our agency. They just started doing that, about a year, maybe a little over a year. We do it, I think it's either biannually or quarterly. I can't remember exactly. It doesn't happen quite enough that I remember. But it's actually required. That's a new thing. This last go-around is they're actually making it a requirement to go to this 8-hour block.
That's pretty good. I was going to say, That's pretty good that your agency makes you do it that often, because we do it like once a year at in-service. I wish we shoot quarterly, but we don't do the defensive tactics stuff as much, and I kind of wish we did. So kudos to your place for that. But two, I was sitting over here listening and thinking, God, I'm such a shitbag. I need to get myself in the gym too, because Justin's over here doing the Krav Maga, getting all crazy with it, and now it turns out it was just all work. So I don't feel so bad anymore.
I don't feel really bad. I was there doing it, and if I would have had any breakfast, I probably would have deposited in the trash can by the time I got after.
Yeah, I had a similar experience when I went to QC a couple years ago. It was anyway. What are we getting to today?
Okay, well, we got a couple things up. First, we'll do a couple short things, and then we'll get into the main topic. The main topic today is going to be basically you bought a gun. We've already talked about that last week, what kind of gun to buy for different uses. Now, what do you do? What do I do to the gun? Do I start taking the soldering iron to it, or what kind of holster maybe should I get? Just basic things, kind of the next step. We might talk a little bit about some practice and some other stuff like that, but just kind of building on the what gun to get, now what's the next steps. Before we do that, I was going to bring up a viewer email, and they sent us a video link, something to talk about. And also go with the, let's see here, we got a little bit of a teaser, nothing set in stone yet, but we're going to talk about a new single stack pistol, just briefly, that's hopefully coming onto the market soon, and I'll go into that more once we get to it, but we're going to start with a video sent in by Tom from Oklahoma. Basically, just a little bit of a backstory. This happened in a parking lot. I don't know how much they knew when it was going on, but he writes, as you guys probably see on Facebook and YouTube, there's a lot of videos of people fighting and incidents happening on the streets. Here's an example of something that happened in a parking lot. What do you guys recommend that the average person do? I'm not a law enforcement officer, but I do conceal carry every day. Do you recommend we get involved in these kind of situations? When, why, or just keep on walking? So I'm going to go ahead and play the video for you guys, and then we'll give our 2 cents on that.
Video of another mother caught on tape not protecting her child, but putting a beating on another woman in front of her baby. Back up. Yeah, this is video from Valley Stream on Long Island. It is one woman beating another in a mall parking lot. Not just that, though. She is punching the other in the head while her husband and children stood by watching. With a baby in his arm, the husband is cheering for his wife, and you can hear older children screaming, "Mom, stop." All this is happening apparently because of an argument over a parking space. Yeah, you heard it right. Well, police have not made any arrests in the case, but they're certainly aware of it as a result of this video. While the investigation is ongoing, we did speak to the woman who is clearly in control of this fight. She talked to us by phone, and she says she is the victim. For now, she's agreed to talk to tell her side of the story tomorrow. But again, this story very much one in progress. A very different story.
All right, so we don't have the actual interview of this woman, but for those of you listening and not watching, basically it starts with a little shoving match and ends with a woman who is probably a good, what do you say, 225? I mean, she's a hefty probably lady on top of a woman that's maybe 125.
150.
Okay, 150, but there's a serious size issue here. And at one point, as you can see here in the video, I'm rolling it back, the larger woman is on top, full mount, with the other woman on the bottom. Her hands, one of her arms is pinned down, and the other one she's holding, I'm sorry, it's blurred out, you can't really see, and she's basically ground and pounding her head and face, just hammer fisting her face away. So when I first see this, I see what's turned into a altercation. This kind of going back to our hand-to-hand combatives thing. Could potentially be escalating to some more serious force here. But one thing I'd like to put out here, just a couple things before Casey bashes me here. Don't let this fight in the Walmart parking lot be the first time you have ever rolled with somebody. Don't let it be the first time you've ever had to deal with a punch, take a punch, or whatever. Please do something, even if it's just one class, a local defensive training class from your community college or something. Do something, because you do not want the first time this happens, you go hand to hand with somebody, be the very first time. Just because you strap a gun to your hip, you take the 6-hour class on use of force and then go forth and prosper. There's a lot more to these issues. Most of these encounters, even the ones that end up lethal with guns, a lot of them either start or somewhere in the middle become a combatives issue, a physical issue of having to interact with these people to maybe just work to getting your gun. So I cannot enough, and I'm speaking to myself too on this. This is an area I don't have enough, deep enough toolbox and skills. I don't put enough time in on it. So just putting that out there. As far as a concealed carry, Tom, the concealed carry guy here in Oklahoma watching this video, brother, if you're walking up on this, the one thing I think a lot of these people make the mistake is they see, oh my goodness, this is a lethal force encounter. This is turning into felonious battery. She's bashing her head in. She could die. I've got to intervene. I would caution you seriously about what you're about to do. Because what you've missed, and what I think is even more important, is the second you step in there and you grab onto this woman and say, hey, stop, what else is going on? Well, the father who's running around creating defense here and letting her continue on without anybody interfering is probably going to punch you in the back of the head. Or maybe stab you, shoot you, I don't know. It's not just a fight with two people. There's at least one other person involved. And this guy's carrying around a toddler and has their other kid in the mix of this. If you were to get involved, hypothetically, you're not just involved with these two ladies or just that one lady that seems to be the aggressor at this point. You're going to be getting involved with at least another guy. He's not small. He's a big dude. And their two children are going to be right in the middle of it too. So I would caution you to, one, not get involved. And two, remember the big picture. Don't get sucked into the one little incident, because that's not what's going to hit you in the back of the head with a tire iron. It's going to be the father, the other parties involved. And this situation, I guarantee it, he's probably going to be okay. But I would not recommend you get involved, Tom. I really wouldn't recommend it. But
yeah, so as I watch that, I see some common, simple bastards involved in stupidity. I do not see a felony assault in progress there. At best, that's going to be a misdemeanor assault outside of some very specific circumstances here anyway. So I think Justin hits the nail on the head. You really have to pay attention to what's going on. Look at the whole situation. We see two people fighting. It's one-on-one. I would look at that as mutual combat, just from what I can see. I just can't see having to get involved there with this caveat, and here's why. Me, regular Joe citizen, I'm probably not getting involved because, as you see, there's other people there that are, who knows what's going on there. Two, I have to go to work on Monday to feed my wife and kids. And do I want the reason I don't go to work Monday and am no longer able to provide for my family because I'm in the can to be for some common, simple people who are acting a fool over something stupid? So I would just caution that just because you have a gun does not mean you are necessarily the protector of everybody in the world now. I get it. Do what you think is right. Do what you can afford. I would say, in my opinion, you do not have a duty to step in there. So that's just how I see it. So, that's that.
yeah, I have to agree. I have that feeling like a lot of other people, you want to do the right thing and all that. But number one, the video probably doesn't show what started it. So you don't know necessarily who was the original aggressor. Is it really worth it? Is she getting beat up really bad? Probably not. Seeing a lot of folks take some blows. They go home with a raspberry and some redness and a few abrasions. Chances are they're not going to die from a massive head wound or something like this. It's not serious lethal force. But also don't forget, guys, if you step into this, you're about a quarter second away from you being on the ground getting whooped. They've tested it, and it doesn't matter how fast your reactions are, it takes about a quarter of a second for somebody to throw a blow. That's all the time it takes to hit you right on that little button, about a 2-inch section on either side of the center of your chin, knock you out, you fall back, smack your head on the concrete, and you're done. Your life has just been changed forever or possibly ended. So it's kind of like...
For what?
Yeah, for what? It's kind of like a car. Is a car cover? Well, if you're standing behind getting shot at, no, it's not. The guy that you're shooting at from at the other end, for some reason, your bullets don't go through. So same thing with this fight. Will they most likely come away with this with awful injuries? Probably not. But you step in, do you want to take the chance that somebody takes a blow, boom, hits your button, drops you, you smack your head on the concrete, and you're never the same? It could change in a quarter of a second. A quarter of a second could change your life. So...
Yeah, I would just, like I said, from a work perspective, I have to get involved there at work, but even then it's going to be, they'll fight until something happens that's bad, spray some mace, and I'm going to wait for a second unit. That's just how that's going to be. So.
Well, let's move on to something a little more pleasurable. Honor Defense. For those of you playing at home, this is honordefense.com. They released at a trade show. It escapes me right now. I think Guns America is one of the first ones that started putting information out about it. They have released what looks like, I would say, a shield ran off and had a love child with some other pistol. And this is the results. It's a single stack, 9mm, and it's roughly the size of a shield. Just to throw a few numbers out there for perspective, it is, let's see here, width. It's 0.96 inches wide. The shield is 0.95. Its barrel length is 3.2. The shield barrel length 3.1. And its height 4.6, same as a shield, 4.6. And length, where's the length? I don't actually have the length, sorry about that. Oh yeah, overall length, 6.2. Overall length on the shield, 6.1. And it is the same configuration, I believe, as a shield. 7-round magazine. And I'm not sure if they have an extended one or not, but the flush fitting one is 7 rounds. And the interesting thing about it is the front end of the dust cover underneath the recoil spring assembly almost looks like it's shaped just like a shield. Safety's in the same place. Slide stop in the same place. And takedown lever is in the same place. It looks a lot like a shield. And immediately comes to mind, I hate to be this way, but who's going to sue them first? Is it either going to be SIG or Smith & Wesson? Because it's very...
Yeah,
very...
I look at that frame, dude. That is like whatever what is it, the P320, the one that's interchangeable?
Oh, yeah, that's the other thing I forgot to say. They use a actual receiver that's serialized, that slides into the frame. That's probably why it's slightly wider, just like the SIG. So you technically buy the trigger mechanism and the fire assembly as a separate unit, and you can interchange basically everything else. So that's neat.
So it's not the frame that's serialized; it's the trigger group.
Yes, it's one piece of metal trigger, just like the SIG modular thing is. And I think it's neat. The way they explain it and the way it looks is it's really, they've taken all the different single stack guns around and taken the positives of all of them and try to put it into one gun. It has cocking serrations forward and the rear. They look to be pretty generous. The other thing that I'm liking is that they are looking at making a extended slide model that will have a barrel. It's not actually shown here on the website, but they have shown some pre-production prototypes that basically, let's see, this is a 3.2. I think it's like a 4-inch barrel. It's just slightly longer, and it does have enough room to actually have a rail section on there. So you could attach, possibly in the future, they come up with a small lighting system or something. So what most people notice, though, is the fist frame. It's a firearm integrated standoff where basically the dust cover is extended about a 1/2 inch, so that theoretically you could push that into someone, and that would give you enough of a standoff that the gun would still cycle and wouldn't be out of battery. I think that's kind of a solution in search of a problem. I don't know, all these people are dying with their guns in their hands because they can't get them to shoot somebody in the stomach, but it does look pretty neat. Pretty sweet. And as I recall, the sights are also either Glock sights or shield sights. I can't remember. That's one thing I've just left me there.
Even the box looks like a Smith & Wesson box. I think they're Glock sights.
I want to say Glock, but don't hold me to it. But the point is, they've made something that you should be able to, I hate it when they come up with something new and then there's only one person making sights for it. I mean, just cut a channel through it that matches something else. I mean, don't make up something completely new. So I really do think, is it the perfect concealed carry pistol? I don't know. Probably not. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. We don't know. But it's pretty neat. It's got a lot of it's got a lot of good features all packed together into one. So I've already been in contact with the company. I'm going to try to get a T&E gun from them. They're not going to release any T&E guns prior to production. So I don't know if that means where they're at in the production process, but they do not want to release any prototypes. They only want to put out T&E guns that are actually production runs. So they're not there yet. Also going to try to get one of them on the show, do a short interview if we can. They said they were too busy last week and this week to do it. So I'm going to be contacting them probably when this show's coming out about the same time to try to see if we can schedule an interview. But hey, all made in America too. I mean, I wish them luck because it looks like it would fit the bill for what a lot of people are looking for.
Any idea on pricing?
No, as I recall, they said MSRP.
MSRP $499.
I believe so, yeah. I was trying to see if I can actually find a picture of the long-barreled model. That's the one you don't see very often. The only place I saw it was actually in a video. I think Guns America went up to one of their booths and was handling one. And I'm also curious to see if it's going to be kind of a long trigger pull or a striker trigger, since they're using that module thing. But anyways, so what we're moving on to is modifications of your gun. So you went out and hopefully you've bought a name brand tested Glock, M&P, SIG, something that many people are out there using. And let's say hypothetically, most people, would you say it's safe to say, Casey, go the polymer striker fired route?
I would say most. That would be a good way to put that. Not many people, you have people that go to the 1911 or people that go to the SIG or whatever, but most people are going to a polymer frame gun anymore. They're so accessible, they're so reasonable cost.
Yeah. So let's hypothetically say you went out, got yourself a Glock. Whatever, we won't talk about the model, that's for the other show. What's the first thing they should do? What do you think, Casey? What's the first thing they should do?
I don't think you have to do any modifications. That's just my view. I don't think you don't have to do anything. Now, I think there are some that would be good. So get the gun, spend the money on a lot of extra ammo, go to one really good class as a foundation, and practice. That's what you need to do. And when I say a good foundations class, I'm not talking about your CCW class or like a NRA class. I'm talking a good class from a reputable trainer. And then shoot. I don't think you have to have any modifications. Now, if you want to have modifications, certainly that's a whole another rabbit hole that we can go down, but I don't think it's required. Just so the gun will shoot fine box stock. But now what should you do? Now what's my opinion on if you want to do modifications? That list could get really ignorant really quickly. I'm a big fan of, I like stippling the grip because for me, I find that the gun can be a bit difficult to control in wet or arduous situations. So I like to stipple the grip. I like a flashlight on the gun, and I like extended mags, and I like a good trigger. All these things add capability to the gun, and in my opinion, they're all worthwhile. Now, do we want to go to a 2-pound trigger? No. Will the connector, the 3.5-pound connector from Glock work? Yes, it'll be just fine. That's a very good trigger. And go from there. That's my opinion. What about you?
Well, I would say one thing. I would add to yours. I do think you need to make one modification. I think you need metal sights.
Yeah, that's my bad.
No big deal. I just don't think plastic sights are a good idea. I think, one, they're flimsy. If you actually put the gun through hard use, they have a tendency to take a beating and show it or break. And also, the sight picture of the standard Glock is just, I've known some shooters that have had trouble trying to put the little circle in the bucket if they only see half the circle, and they overthink it. I wish they would start with plain black sights. So they didn't have to worry about this box and bucket and circle, and because they tend to either shoot high or low, or I've seen a lot of different kind of issues with that where they don't see the whole circle, so they end up shooting too high. But I would say a good set of metal sights. I don't think they have to be night sights. And I don't think they need to be anything crazy like, I mean, I've seen some ridiculous triangle-shaped loop, like AR-15 looking sights. No. Just get some quality metal sights. Just to throw some out there, Meprolite, Trigicon, a few of those make very basic 3-dot sights that most people get. They're about $89. As far as metal sights go, I really like Defoor's sights that are all metal, all black, and the front is serrated and very, not real thin, but thinner than stock. Really, really crisp sight picture. Of course, there's no night sights in them. That's another good one.
Those are the sights that I use, and I was remiss for not bringing up the metal sights thing. I guess I thought we were talking about different kind of modifications. I use his sights, but the front sight is the same, but it's got a tritium insert. So it's the same width, basically. It's got the serrations on it, and it's got the singular tritium insert, which I like. I like my eyes drawn to it. I like it.
Yeah, I've carried both. I think as far as most people, they would probably be fine without the tritium, but it doesn't hurt. It's kind of to each their own. The nice, thin, crisp front sight really makes aiming, makes it easier to aim. As you can see here, one of these pictures I have brought up here, the left one is the Defoor sights, real simple, crisp, all black, and the right is some Glock sights with your, put the ball in the bucket. I just think it's better. Another one that I've been working with recently is Proctor's Way of the Gun sights, the Y-notch. And I'm really liking them. They have not tritium, but a fiber optic front, and I'm finding that I can shoot them pretty quickly, and also shoot them accurately. They seem to be a happy mix. Not totally sold on them, and if I had to pick one tomorrow, it would be what Casey's talking about, basically a Defoor tactical style of sight, except the front one with a single tritium dot and then the plain black rears. If I had to settle today, that's what I would go back to. I still have those sitting in my cleaning kit right now, and I'm ready to put back on because those so far have been my top pick. But I'm trying these other ones out, and so far I'm liking them quite a bit. So let's see what else. Grip stuff. Yeah, I forgot to talk about that. I'm with Casey on the grip things. I don't necessarily think it's you don't have to have it, but it sure is nice. It really is. Especially some people out there, if you get it done by a quality manufacturer.
Yeah, like BoreSight and some other folks.
Yeah, it's really sweet. It's not going to make up for a weak grip. And I almost want to say spending $12 on a grip strengther from Amazon might be a better investment than shipping your gun off for 6 weeks and anywhere from $150 to $500 to get it reshaped, stippled, reduced, whatever.
Captains of Crush, captainsofcrush.com. Great grip builders.
For your beginners out there, and I actually have one of these. I got it from Amazon after, like I said, I think I mentioned this before. When I started competing again, I noticed that my support hand strength wasn't where it was, where I'd cut my finger real good in that notch.
Turns out you're a biatch.
I bought an adjustable grip trainer from Amazon. It goes from like 10 to 88 pounds, and I've been using that at work intermittently. Like I said, that was $12. So that will play a bigger role than I think than your actual stippling. But I'm not going to lie, stippling the gun is pretty sweet. But and also be careful if you're going to use that gun for competition. It could push you into a different classification that is probably a non-issue, basic stippling and stuff. But just make sure you check before you do it. You don't want to.
Oh my! Since you started it, I'm going on a rant. So you saw the pictures we posted last week of our guns, our carry setup. That gun is the gun I carry every day at work as a cop. That is as defensive pistol / duty gun as it gets. Legitimate, in use, carried every day by a cop. That gun cannot be shot in competition.
Why not?
Because it's got a light, one. And two, now the internals on that gun have not been fooled with at all. It's strictly the sights have been changed and it's been stippled. And I use extended magazines. So I don't think it'll fit in the box. So it automatically doesn't work. And because it's stippled, it's now a
enhanced
enhanced service pistol gun. So this is me losing my mind. Ultimately, that's a stock gun at the end of the day. That gun has nothing done to the inside of it. And so I get rather furious with those rules at times because they don't make a lot of sense, but I digress.
Yeah. I don't think you'd be hurt. If you put ESP or what's the production standard service SSP on your scorecard, who cares? Just be aware of it. You might have to take the light off. Okay, whatever. I don't not go to the match. Just understand.
Yeah, don't not go because of that. I mean, we can bitch about it, but don't not go because of that.
It just something for your consideration. That's all I'm saying. So you know, and it will push you into enhanced service. I think the only thing you can't put is certain things, and you can do trigger work and all that. But anyways, let's see. Anything you wouldn't recommend as far as grip work should people avoid?
You just have to be really careful, especially on on these polymer guns, because if you get somebody who doesn't know what they're doing, or somebody's doing it in their garage at home or whatever, you can really jack up the gun. And you just want to make sure you have somebody who's competent and knows what they're doing. I.e., don't let your gun be their first gun that they're doing, because you can jack some things up, and it's just important. We don't want to break the frame. We don't want to damage the frame and do other things like that. So I would say be careful and be aware of that, because you go too deep or whatever, it can jack up the gun. I don't have an issue with those sorts of modifications personally. Now, a lot of people spend a bunch of money to quote unquote lighten the slide and all this stuff. I don't really get that. I think at some point the money spent is a bit of a diminishing return.
Yeah, definitely.
In that we spend all this money to quote unquote upgrade the gun, and now the gun doesn't work because we've got so many variables that we've inputted into the machine to try and diagnose and fix and correct. I don't necessarily see the value there. Now, I do like front cocking serrations. I'm a fan of those. I have not done those to any of my guns yet, but I like those. I can't really think of anything not to do. It's you see something and you're like, oh, don't do that, but I can't think of anything off the top of my head, Justin.
I wouldn't go too extreme. There's some people that undercut the trigger guards and make them really thin. I don't know that I would do that. I think you're getting to the point of diminishing returns on that. And it's really a money issue for me. I think is just don't be spending your your first $200 on cocking serrations and stipple. It should be a lot lower on the list. People get a little put it too high on the list of priorities, in my opinion. And I think they make certain things like the magazine release. I don't think you really need to be making the magazine release that much easier to depress. The stock one is fine. The only time I've ever had a problem with magazine releases is when I put bigger ones on it and the magazine came out when I didn't want it to. So I just would.
I have not had that issue with the magazine release. I really like the Vickers magazine release.
That's a happy medium, though. That one's very, very slightly extended.
Right. I like the Vickers slide stop also, but I found that I was activating it on accident, so I no longer use them. Just something to be aware of. So you need to understand when you start fooling with the gun, okay, do whatever it is you're going to do, and then test it.
Mm-hmm.
Make sure the gun runs right.
Yep.
That way, you don't want to take the gun, do 50 things to it, and then now the gun doesn't work, and you're like, oh shit, why doesn't the gun work? You can't, it's very difficult to diagnose at that point. If you do one thing at a time in a methodical, thought-out way, it makes things a lot easier for you to diagnose when the gun starts to choke. Not that doesn't happen a lot, but on occasion it will, for whatever reason. It is a machine at the end of the day. So I also think you need to be able to explain why you do what you've done.
Good point.
I don't think because so-and-so does it is a valid reason. Like I said, I like the grip of the gun better when it's stippled. It fits my hand better. It fits better for me. I see a value there. I like the extended magazine release because I already have to change the gun in my hand to get the magazine out. I prefer that. It works good with my little tiny thumbs. So that's why I do that. Just be able to explain why you're doing what you're doing and really think about it. And is it necessary for what I'm doing? Some may be yes, some may be no. But have a conscious understanding of what you're doing to the gun. Why are you changing the machine? Anything is good. Just make sure it's a valid concept. Does that make sense, Justin?
Yeah, it really does. And as much as I'd love to have, like I'm looking at right now, an Agency Arms Glock, I have to be honest with myself that spending $2,000 on one of my Glocks, unless I have a 10 or 20,
that shit ain't happening, bro.
Yeah, unless I have 10,
I can't get there from here.
Unless I have $10,000 or $20,000 burning a hole in my pocket, there's a lot of other things I should be spending that on first before I get to that point. I don't knock it. It's like a race car.
No, I'm not knocking it. And if they want to send me one, I mean, I'm in. Let's make sure we're all tracking here. I'm in.
Oh,
but I'm not going to pay for one because that's crazy.
Oh, they look so sweet. Oh, they're cool. Anyways,
they are.
Triggers. That's one thing. A lot of people want to do the trigger thing. Do you want to go into more detail on that? I have a couple things to say about that.
And I like them stock. I think those are fine. I like them in the Glock 3.5 pound connector. I got no issues with that. Other than that, I wouldn't fool with much. Just my opinion, because now again we're introducing issues potentially. We start fooling with the springs and do what you want, but at the end of the day, you need to be able to explain and justify why you're doing what you're doing. 3.5 pounds, I can get there from here. The gun will shoot fine. You go much lower than that on a gun that you're actually carrying. For me, I don't see the need.
Yeah. Plus, you're taking it out of one of their other functioning guns. You're not bringing it out of, you're not creating that out of nowhere. What I'll say about triggers. Right now, my work gun is stock. I have a Glock 26 that has a skimmer trigger, Haley skimming.
How do you like that, by the way? Is it worth the $200 or whatever?
It's $159. I got it pulled up here on the screen. What I will say is the skimmer trigger feels about like a Glock 19 Gen 2 that I picked up. Law enforcement trade-in that had a lot of rounds on it, and the trigger was smooth as glass. That's what it feels like. They use all OEM parts. I would recommend it. It's all
for $159, really?
If you're going to get a trigger, and I'm not saying for the price, I'm saying because some people are going to do this anyways. They take OEM Glock parts and put a mirror polish on all of them. Basically, they instead of sitting there and firing a few thousand rounds to your Glock to the point that it naturally polishes itself smooth, they manually polish it. That's what they've done to an extreme extent. I mean, the whole trigger bar is mirror finished. I've chased Glock triggers more than I should. I've played with ones that are fully adjustable. I went the route of taking a really light disconnector with a heavy New York spring to try to get that nice takeout, but a heavy, crisp wall. I messed with them to the point that I realized, like Casey says, just keep them stock, dry fire, and shoot the crap out of them, and they'll smooth out. Put a little bit of lubrication right there on the disconnector, and it'll be fine. It really will. It's not going to affect your shooting that much. But if you're going to do it, I would recommend the skimmer trigger. It's not a 1911. It doesn't give your Glock the performance of a stock 1911. I don't know if I'd agree with that.
Well, yeah, I mean, that was that whole thing with that triggers is what irritated me, because he's like, oh, it'll give you the feel of a 1911. I'm like, dude,
No.
the way the trigger actuates, that's not possible.
No.
Stop it. I get it, but come on.
And my experience has been, even with the 3.5 connectors, the angle changes to make it easier, which typically gives you more movement through and after the break. It makes it more mushy, I've found. I would much rather have a slightly heavier trigger that breaks more quickly and more crisp. That's what I found. Most of the lighter, the Ghost disconnectors, 3.5 connectors, and all these other variations, they start to get to kind of like a mushy, lightweight revolver. Lots of movement in the trigger.
You know, there was a time I rolled in one of my guns. I had a 3.5 pound connector, and then I had the New York 8 spring in there also. That was a pretty decent trigger, not for nothing. I didn't love it, but it was a nice, solid 5 pounds through and through. But it was almost like a forced reset. It was really, it was an interesting thing. I wouldn't do it for like a work gun or something, but it was something we toyed around with several years ago.
Yep, I did the same kind of heavy spring light disconnector thing. Overseas, I played with a couple different triggers and a really custom. I don't know. It was all money wasted. I'm sorry. Even
we did waste a lot of money on stupid shit.
Even the skimmer trigger, $159 trigger, is, in my opinion, sorry, Travis, a waste of money. You'd be better off buying ammo and probably dry firing it. But could you swap out a brand new gun and kind of bypass that problem? Yes. You could also send it to a competent gunsmith who could probably polish it for $20-$30 and get the same effect. But if you're going to do it, I think it's okay because he's using all OEM parts. So I think you're safe going this way. But honestly, a stock trigger with a Glock, yeah, you're fine. M&P, though, there's some Apex. Right here we see Apex Tactical Specialties has released some pretty nice triggers for M&Ps to really increase the tactile feedback that a lot of the stock M&Ps, especially the earlier designs, have lacked with a nice tactile reset. I think there's probably more value added working on those guns with some triggers than the Glocks for the a little bit more feedback. I do have one in my Shield, and I do think it's a good addition to it. More so than the Glock for sure, any of my Glocks. But once again, don't go crazy, don't go super light. But I think they make good triggers, especially on the M&Ps and the Shield.
I like Apex parts.
Yeah. I think that's worth the money, especially if you have an M&P that doesn't have any tactile reset to it, and that bugs you. Some people, they don't care. Me, I've spent a lot of time on Glocks. I like the boom, click to feel that tactile reset. That's important to me. And I did that to my Shield, and I love it. It's great. Lightens it up slightly, a little crisper, and a nice positive reset. That's value added, in my humble opinion. So, all right. So we've talked about modifications and all that stuff. Hopefully we haven't we overlooked anything that's required here. We didn't talk much about some of the other support gear. But in general, buy once, cry once, get some quality stuff. Just Google it, folks. I had somebody ask me about some bag earlier today, and I was like, just type in blah, 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 review. There'll be 80 people online posting YouTube videos about how it sucks or how it's great or whatever. Just research it. You see somebody's new holster, blah, 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 blah. Fine. Google it, search, give it a try. But if it's $15 for a Kydex holster, it's probably not going to be as good as a $80 Raven. Sorry, you get what you pay for. Same thing with belts and a lot of other stuff. So take your time. Try to buy quality. As a general rule, you'll get a little bit more when you pay more, and you'll be better off than like me and Casey with a whole box full of holsters. Yeah.
I have more crap, dude, laying around that I'm just like, why the hell did I buy that? And then I'm like, oh, maybe I can pawn it off on Justin, and I was like, shit.
Yeah, and if you have it, exchange it with your friends. Let them borrow it. Let them try it out. Don't set them up for failure. I loan out holsters all the time. Every now and then some guns too. You know, it didn't work for you doesn't mean it won't be the best thing for some other guy. So people go to take that concealed carry class that we talked about a couple of shows ago. I loaned out 3 holsters for that class. A lot of guys didn't carry off duty very much. So here, try these holsters, use your gun, try it out. So I think that's, pass it on to the next people. Let them benefit from your box full of mistakes because it might work for them. Didn't work for you, but it might work for them. But try it out, test it. All right, Casey, that's about all I got. You want to get us out of here?
Yeah, man. Like I said, just know what you're doing and understand whatever modification is going to do to the gun. Know why you're doing it. Understand and be able to explain that. The only thing I'll say other than that is we hear, or it's discussed all the time about, oh, there's a potential legal liability if you do X, Y, or Z. I am not an attorney or anything like that. I advise you to consult one. However, there is nothing that I have been able to find that describes because you had a lighter trigger and you shot somebody legally, you're more liable than you were if it was a stock trigger. That are out there that talk about became accidental because of something, because that's needed to say to not go to prison, and then it becomes an argument. But from a true good shoot, no problem, that way issue, what you've done to the gun is really irrelevant, in my opinion, because there's no case law that supports it the other way. Could there be? Maybe someday, but there's not today. At the end of the day, the use of deadly force is authorized whether we use a gun or a flamethrower or a freaking tank. It's either authorized and legitimate or it's not. So just keep that in the back of your mind when someone tells you the sky's falling or whatever because you make a modification and now you're going to go to jail because you had a gun that was designed to shoot them better. Doesn't make any sense to me either. Anyway, folks, until next time, don't forget to share, like, and you guys know what I mean. Until next time, be safe, train hard, keep your head on a swivel, and shoot straight. Take care.